The dust kicked up behind the truck as I hit the empty ranch road at dawn. The cab smelled of old leather and diesel, the kind that clings to your skin after hours behind the wheel. I'd always driven alone, the silence a comfort like the weight of a saddle on a steady horse. But today felt different. The boss had assigned a new hand to ride along, some city girl named Lena, fresh out of whatever life she'd left behind. Sharing the miles meant sharing space I wasn't ready to give. Her eyes met mine in the rear view, unreadable as a shadowed canyon. What was she thinking? As miles stretch, the first conversation breaks the silence. My days on the ranch started before the sun crested the ridges. I'd be out mucking stalls by first light, the pitchfork heavy in my hands, steam rising from the manure like ghosts of the night. The work kept me steady, fencing wire that bit into my palms, checking water lines snaking through the sagebrush. It was honest labor, the kind that didn't ask questions. I'd built walls around myself years ago, after Ellie. She was a summer hire, all fire and fleeting touches, gone when the leaves turned. Left me with a heart that thudded too loud in quiet moments. I didn't let anyone close after that. The ranch was big enough for distance. Lena showed up on a Tuesday, truck pulling in with a rattle that echoed off the barns. She stepped out in boots that looked barely broken in, jeans fitted like they came from a store rack, not earned in the dirt. Younger than me by a decade, maybe, with dark hair pulled back tight and eyes that scanned everything like she was mapping an escape. City raised, the boss said. Some college program sending her out here for real experience. She carried herself confident, shoulders square, but there was a hitch in her step on the uneven ground, a flicker when the wind whipped dust her way. Outwardly straight, or so the talk went. She'd mentioned a boyfriend back home once, casual as checking the weather. But something in her gaze felt off, like she was holding back a storm. The assignment came that afternoon. Boss, clapping me on the shoulder in the supply shed. Pair up with Lena for the runs, he grunted, wiping sweat from his brow. Efficiency. Can't have two trucks burning fuel for the same job. Supply runs to town, hay bales, feed sacks, parts for the equipment, meant long hauls down back roads and highways, hours where the world narrowed to the hum of tires on asphalt. I'd always gone solo, radio low, mind wandering to nothing. Now her. I nodded, throat tight. Sharing the cab meant no hiding the way my pulse jumped at closeness. But refusing wasn't an option. Ranch work didn't bend for feelings. We loaded the truck that first time under a flat sky, the air thick with the scent of dry earth. Lena hefted a feed bag without complaint, muscles straining under her shirt, but her grip slipped once, dirt scattering. I caught it before it hit the ground, our hands brushing. Quick, accidental. Her skin was warm, softer than expected. Thanks, she said, voice even, but her eyes darted away. I muttered something about watching the weight, climbed into the driver's seat. She settled beside me, the cab shrinking around us. The door thudded shut, sealing in the faint trace of her soap, clean and sharp against the truck's familiar musk. The first hours dragged. Engine rumbling to life, we pulled out. The ranch shrinking in the side mirror. Practical talk only. Routes, load shifts, weather ahead. Turn left at the old mill marker? She asked, map folded on her lap. I nodded, eyes on the road, hyper-aware of her every shift. Leg crossing, arm brushing the console, the way her fingers tapped the windowsill like she was counting miles to freedom. My hands gripped the wheel tighter, knuckles pale. Why did the space feel so small? I'd driven with others before, hired hands, even the boss. But this was different. Her presence pulled at something buried, like a fence line straining in wind. She asked for back road shortcuts halfway through, voice cutting the quiet. This highway's endless. You know a faster way? Revealing her inexperience, the city edges showing, I pointed out the turn, gravel crunching under tires as we veered off. Saves 10 miles, but it's rough, I said, keeping it short. She leaned forward, studying the horizon, her shoulder inches from mine. Show me. In that moment, reliance flickered, small, but there. She needed the road I knew, the way through the dust and dips. My chest tightened. Was it just work? Or something more? I pushed the thought down, focused on the wheel. But her questions kept coming, probing the land like she was testing its hold on her. By the time we hit town, unloading in the warehouse heat, sweat beaded on her neck. She wiped it away, laughing light at a near miss with a pallet. "You're good at this," she said, almost casual. I shrugged, heart thudding restraint. Back in the cab for the return, silence settled heavier. Her head tilted against the window, eyes half closed. The sun dipped low, painting the dashboard gold. I stole a glance, her lips parted slightly, unguarded. What walls was she hiding? Mine felt thinner already. Routine sets in, but small cracks appear in the quiet stretches. Those first drives turned into a rhythm, like the steady clip of hooves on packed earth. Dawn departures became our unspoken pact. I'd fire up the engine while the sky bled pink over the ridges. The cab, still cold from the night. Lena would climb in with a nod, her breath fogging the window briefly before she wiped it clear. The highways stretched endless, flanked by sagebrush that blurred into gray-green waves under the tires. We'd hit the blacktop, radio murmuring low, country tunes about lost loves and open roads that felt too close to home. I kept my eyes forward, but the miles forced awareness. Her presence filled the space, a quiet weight beside me. Practical dependencies grew without fanfare. She started relying on my navigation early on, the map forgotten in the glove box. "Which way at the fork?" she'd ask, voice threading the hum of the engine. I'd point to the faded sign half buried in dust, explaining the cut-through past the old windmill. "Keeps us off the interstate, less traffic." She listened, head tilted, absorbing the land's secrets like a foal learning its footing. Fuel stops turned routine, too. I'd pull into the dingy station off Route 17, the one with pumps that creaked like rusted gates. While I topped off the tank, she'd hand over cash from her wallet, fingers brushing mine over the nozzle. "You know these roads better than anyone," she'd say. Simple fact. But it pulled at me. Reliance, unasked for. I nodded, cap twisting shut with a click. But inside, doubt stirred. What if she saw through my silences? Physical closeness crept in, uninvited. The cab was built for two, but not for this tension. Accidental brushes at the gearshift happened more, her hand steadying as I downshifted on a hill, knuckles grazing my thigh through denim. Warmth lingered, a spark against the chill of morning air seeping through the vents. We'd share the thermos of coffee I'd brew before leaving, black and strong, passed back and forth, like a truce. Her lips on the rim after mine left a faint trace, and I'd watch the road harder, throat dry, despite the heat. Once, on a straight stretch, she stretched her legs, boot nudging my calf. "Cramped in here," she murmured, not moving it right away. The contact burned simple, but my pulse thudded like a hammer on anvil. I shifted, pretending to adjust the seat, but the air thickened. Why did her nearness feel like a fence closing in? My mind turned inward on those halls, fear of attachment coiling tight. I'd always kept to myself after Ellie, her laugh echoing in empty stalls long after she drove off with some city boy, leaving me to mend the wire she'd snapped in her haste. Isolated heartbreaks, that's what they were. Nights alone in the bunkhouse, wind rattling the shutters, replaying what I'd never said. Love in close quarters turned to loss too quick, like a sudden storm flooding the arroyo. Lena's questions pried at those walls, innocent but insistent. "How long you been out here?" she'd ask, gazing at the passing buttes. I'd give short answers. 10 years since the divorce that wasn't mine to speak of, steering back to the weather or the load. But memories surfaced unbidden. The weight of unspoken words, the ache of watching someone leave without a backward glance. Attachment meant risk, and the ranch taught me to weather storms alone. Yet here she was, mile after mile, chipping away. She started with small admissions, cracks in her confident shell. Fatigue from long hours hit her first, after a week of back-to-back runs. "These drives wear on you," she'd say, rubbing her neck as the sun climbed. Her voice carried an edge, the rural demands, unfamiliar. Nights of poor sleep in the shared bunkhouse, days wrestling bales that left bruises blooming under her sleeves. Back home, traffic was stop and go, not this endless nothing. City life, she'd sketch in fragments, concrete horizons, nights out that ended in crowds, A family expecting her to follow paths laid out like feed lines. But out here, the isolation pressed. I didn't know quiet could feel this heavy, she confessed once, during a lull when the radio fizzled out, her eyes on the sagebrush, distant. I gripped the wheel, wanting to offer something real, but words stuck. Gets easier, I managed, lie heavy on my tongue. Her reliance deepened, asking about water sources for the herd, how to spot a lame horse from afar. Each question bound us tighter, her uncertainty mirroring mine in ways I couldn't name. The routine held for weeks, a fragile balance. Dawn light filtering through the windshield, coffee steam curling between us, highways unspooling like thread from a spool. But in the quiet stretches, small cracks appeared. Her laugh at a coyote darting across the road, my stolen glances at the curve of her jaw and profile. The cab felt less like a cage, more like a shared breath. Fear whispered I'd led her too close, but pulling away seemed impossible now. One stormy night changes the pattern, pulling them off the main road. Rain hammered the windshield like nails into a fence post, turning the back road into a river of mud. We'd left the ranch late that afternoon, supplies loaded heavy in the bed, chasing a break in the clouds that never came. Lena sat rigid beside me, hands clenched in her lap as lightning cracked the sky open. The wipers slapped frantic, but visibility dropped to nothing. "Pull over?" she asked, voice tight over the roar. I shook my head, gripping the wheel until my fingers ached. The arroyo ahead swelled, water rushing brown and furious across the dip. Tires spun, caught the edge, and the truck lurched to a halt, engine sputtering protest. Flooded. No way through till morning. We sat in the downpour's drumbeat, miles from anywhere. The cab felt smaller, air thick with wet earth and tension. "Motel's back 10 miles, I said finally, turning the key. Reverse was impossible in the slick. We'd wait it out, or risk the washout. Lena exhaled slow, rubbing her arms. Great first storm together. Her laugh was thin, edged with something raw. I nodded, eyes on the torrent, but my mind raced. Sharing a night meant no escape, no walls of silence to hide behind. The boss would understand. Roads closed. Safety first. But this pulled us closer than work demanded. Dawn broke gray, rain easing to a drizzle. We backtracked slow, truck groaning through puddles, until the neon sign of the roadside motel flickered into view. "Single vacancy," the clerk said, handing over one key. "Shared room. No discussion. It was that, or the cab, all night." The door creaked open to a space cramped as a stall. Twin beds, thin quilt smelling of bleach and old smoke. Lena dropped. Her bag, peeled off her soaked jacket, water dripping from her hair in dark strands. I hung back by the door, arms crossed, heart thudding like distant thunder. "You take the bed by the window," I offered, voice flat. She shook her head, toweling her face. "We can split it. It's fine." Evening settled heavy. We ate gas station sandwiches on the sagging mattress, knees almost touching. The storm's aftermath hummed outside, wind rattling the pane. Lena broke first, staring at her wrapper. "Family back home, they expect me settled by now. Boyfriend, house, the works." Her words hung, casual but weighted like a saddle too tight. Pressures from the city, she sketched. Parents calling weekly. Questions about dates that felt like traps. A life mapped out without her say. Out here, it's like breathing different air. But they don't get it. Her eyes met mine, searching. Vulnerability cracked her shell, pulling at my own buried ache. I deflected, heart pounding restraint. Shared a minimal work story. The time a fence broke in a blizzard, me alone mending it till frostbite nipped my fingers. "Learn to handle things solo," I said, gaze on the carpet's fray. No mention of Ellie. The way her leaving left me hollow as an empty trough. Lena leaned in, elbow brushing my arm. "Sounds lonely." The word landed soft, probing. I shrugged, standing abrupt to check the door lock. "Ranch life is." Distance, my old shield, but it slipped. Her nearness warmed the chill room, stirring wants I'd fenced off long ago. Next drive tested it harder. Clear skies now, but fatigue clung from the night. We loaded feed at dawn, her movement slower, shadows under her eyes. In the cab, Miles unspooling, she slid closer during a straightaway, head nodding against the seat. "Mind if I rest?" she murmured, shoulder settling against mine. The contact was innocent, exhaustion's pull, but my body tensed, pulse racing like a spooked mare. I should have shifted, created space, but I froze, the heat of her seeping through flannel. Her breath evened, soft against my sleeve, and the world narrowed to that point of touch. Failed attempt at distance, my arm stayed put, traitor to my resolve. Tension built unspoken in the cab those following days. The pull tugged constant, her hand steadying on a bump, eyes lingering when I pointed out a hawk wheeling overhead. I questioned my guarded heart on empty stretches, wind whistling past. Why let her in? Ellie had shown the cost. Closeness, breeding loss, like a drought cracking the earth. Yet Lena's reliance, asking about night skies, sharing a glance at a sunset bleeding red, wore at me. One afternoon, gravel crunching under tires, she turned fully. "You ever feel stuck out here?" The question hung, her gaze unflinching. I swallowed, words failing. The air between us thickened, charged as before a storm. My walls held, but cracks widened, fear and want twisting like barbed wire. Silence thickens on a clear day, leading to deeper revelations. The silence thickened on a clear day, sun beating down like a forge on the dashboard. We'd hit the highway after a morning of wrangling strays, dust still clinging to our boots in the cab. Lena sat quieter than usual, fingers tracing patterns on the armrest, her gaze fixed on the sagebrush rolling past. The radio hummed faint, a twangy song about roads not taken, but neither of us reached to turn it up. The air felt heavy, charged with words unsaid, like the moment before a canyon echo fades. I kept my eyes on the horizon, but her presence pulled, a steady tug against my resolve. She broke it first, voice low over the engine's rumble. "You ever wonder if the path you're on is even yours?" Her words landed soft, but they carried weight, like a stone skipping across still water. I glanced over, her profile sharp against the window, jaw set but eyes distant, shadowed. She shifted, boots scuffing the floor mat. "Back home, everyone assumes. Boyfriends, marriage, the whole line, straight as this road." A pause, her breath catching. "But out here, alone with the miles, I keep doubting. What if it's not straight at all? What if the town's eyes, those whispers in the bunkhouse, see something I haven't said out loud?" Her confession hung, raw and unpolished, doubts about her path cracking the air. Rural expectations pressed her, she said, folks nodding at her like she fit a mold, but inside, questions churned like dust devils. No details on exes or dates, just the ache of pretending, the fear of shattering that image. My chest tightened, parallel fears rising like floodwater. Ellie's ghost stirred our summer stolen and stolen glances, her hand in mine under starlit skies, until unspoken truths tore us apart. She'd left without a word, chasing a life that didn't bend for us, vowing silence to keep her family whole. I'd sworn never again, building walls thicker than ranch fences, heart buried deep as a well, love unspoken turned to loss, sharp as wire cuts. "Paths twist," I muttered, voice rough, eyes back on the wheel, but the words tasted like defeat, her vulnerability mirroring mine too close. Micro moments piled then, small but insistent. We hit a rough patch, tires jolting over washboard gravel, the truck bucking like a colt. Her hand landed on my shoulder, steadying us both, fingers warm through flannel, grip firm but fleeting. "Hold on," she said, but her touch lingered a beat too long, thumb brushing my collarbone. Heat spread, unbidden, and I nodded, pulse thudding under her palm. Later, at a stop for water, our eyes met over the thermos, hers unflinching, searching, mine caught despite the pull to look away. The contact held, electric in the midday glare, sagebrush whispering around us. No words, just that gaze, peeling back layers I'd kept sealed. Internal conflict peaked in the quiet after, miles blurring as I wrestled desire against self-protection. Her nearness stirred longings I'd chained down, want for her laugh in the wind, her hand in mine on these endless drives, but vulnerability, Terrified, a storm waiting to flood everything. What if she pulled away like Ellie, leaving me hollow in the cab's empty seat? The ranch was my anchor, solitude my shield. Letting her in risked the whole damn thing crumbling like dry adobe. Yet her confessions echoed, doubts about straight paths brushing my own buried truths. I wanted to reach, to bridge the console with honesty, but fear clamped tight, a vice on my ribs. The try-fail cycle spun on. Verbally, I pulled away. Short answers when she probed deeper, changing subjects to feed loads or fence lines. Weather's holding, I'd say, voice clipped, steering clear of the heart. But my body betrayed stolen glances tracing the curve of her neck when she stretched, the way her lips curved in thought. Once, during a lull, she turned, catching me mid-look. "What?" she asked. No accusation, just curiosity. I shrugged, heat rising. "Nothing. Road's clear." Lie thin as morning mist, but she smiled faint, letting it pass. The glances piled, each one a crack in my armor, desire winning ground despite the walls. Days blurred into that tension, her reliance shifting from roads to these shared silences, pulling me toward the edge. The cab held our unspoken dance, confessions half-voiced, touches accidental but charged. My fear ward constant. But the pull grew, like roots seeking water through stone. A breakdown strands them, forcing unfiltered honesty. The breakdown hit without warning, engine coughing like a horse with colic as we crested into the remote canyon. Sun hung low, casting long shadows across the red rock walls that closed in like silent sentinels. We'd taken a shortcut I'd shown her weeks back, chasing time after a late start from the ranch. Tires crunched to a stop on the gravel shoulder, steam hissing from the hood. I popped the door, boots hitting dust, and lifted the latch. Radiator hose split, coolant pooling dark. "Damn," I muttered, wiping grease on my jeans. Cell signal flickered weak here, deep in the cut of stone. Hours till help, if the tow truck even answered. Back in the cab, the space shrank tighter than ever. Door thudded shut, sealing us in with the fading light and the faint tick of cooling metal. Lena shifted beside me, knee brushing the console, her scent, sweat and earth, mingling with the diesel tang. She peered out the windshield at the canyon's throat, arms wrapped around herself. "How long?" Her voice was steady, but her fingers twisted the hem of her shirt, betraying the edge. I shrugged, radio crackling static as I tried dispatch. "Couple hours. Maybe more." Silence fell heavy, broken only by the distant call of a raven wheeling overhead. The cab's confines amplified everything, her shallow breaths, the creak of leather under her weight, the way her boot tapped faint against the floor. She leaned in then, shoulder pressing mine as if the narrowing walls pushed her closer. Dim light filtered through the dust-streaked glass, painting her face in soft amber. "I keep thinking I'll never fit here," she said, words tumbling low, raw as an open wound. "City girl in boots that don't belong. Family calls, expecting me back, settled with someone safe. But out here with the miles and the quiet, I feel like I'm cracking open. What if I don't fit anywhere? What if this doubt about who I am, who I'm supposed to want, is just going to swallow me?" Tears welled, catching the light, one slipping down her cheek unchecked. She didn't wipe it, just let it trace a path. Vulnerability, stripping her bare. The rural pull, the town's unyielding gaze, her hidden bends in the straight line she'd walked. It all poured out, fears of isolation twisting like canyon winds. My monologue churned inward, the weight of my own buried longings pressing like unspoken thunder rolling through my chest. Her tears pulled at threads I'd knotted tight, desires for closeness I'd starved since Ellie, for hands that lingered without fleeing, for a love that didn't vanish into dawn fog. But vulnerability loomed as the real storm, fear of baring my heart only to watch it trampled like spring grass under hooves. The cab mirrored it all, our shared breath thickening the air, her nearness a temptation I couldn't afford. What if confessing cracked me open, left me exposed on this endless ranch? Longings thudded heavy, like the canyon's echo refusing to fade, warring with the walls I'd built to survive alone. I swallowed hard, partial breakthrough edging out. "Isolation here's a choice sometimes," I admitted, voice rough as gravel, eyes on the shadowed rock. "Ranch work teaches you that. Fences to mend solo, nights where the wind's your only company. I've chosen it after losing someone who couldn't stay. No names, no details of Ellie's hurried goodbye or the ache that followed like a lame step. I stopped short of the full truth, heart hammering restraint, the words hanging incomplete. Her hand found my arm, fingers light but steady, warmth seeping through sleeve. "Sounds like it hurts," she whispered, thumb tracing a small circle. The touch anchored me, but fear surged. Too close, too real. I nodded, pulling back just enough, gaze dropping to the console cracked from years of use. Rescue rumbled in after 3 hours, tow truck's lights piercing the dusk like hesitant stars. The driver nodded gruff, hooking the truck with chains that clanked cold. Lena and I climbed into his cab, separate now, the charged air lingering unresolved between us like dust, settling slow. Her eyes met mine once, question lingering, but words stayed locked. Back at the ranch by midnight, engine fixed rough under shop lights. The night felt heavier. Her goodnight was quiet, door closing soft on the bunkhouse. But the canyon's echo clung, the tears, the touch, the half-truths, stirring something unstoppable. Back on routine drives, the dam begins to crack. The longest drive yet. Stretched out like a final test, the truck eating miles under a sky that bled orange into purple. We'd left the ranch at midday, hauling fence posts and wire coils that rattled in the bed, chasing a deadline for the boss's big repair job. Exhaustion clung to us both. Sleepless nights from canyon echoes, days of wrangling heat that baked the earth hard. Lena sat closer than before, her boot wedged against the console, but the silence between us hummed tense, like a wire pulled too taut. The ridges rose gold in the sunset, casting long shadows that swallowed the sagebrush whole. My hands ached on the wheel, guards lowering with the fading light. Her presence felt inevitable now, a pull I couldn't outrun. She noticed it first, the distance I'd rebuilt after the breakdown. Her head turned slow, eyes narrowing against the glare. "You've been quiet again, pulling back like I'm some stray you don't want near the herd." Her voice cut sharp, no room for deflection, demanding real talk as the engine droned on. The words landed heavy, stirring the dust in my chest. I gripped tighter, asphalt blurring, but she pressed. "Ever since the canyon, it's like a wall went up. What are you afraid of? Talk to me." Exhaustion stripped her patience, her gaze unflinching, pulling me into the open. The cab's confines amplified it. No escape in the endless hall. Vulnerability surged then, hot and unbidden, like a spring cracking through parched ground. I swallowed, voice rough over the rumble. Loving in close quarters, it's a risk I can't afford. After Ellie, I learned that. She was here one summer. Touches in the shadows, whispers that meant everything. But unspoken truths tore it apart. She left without a fight, chasing a life that fit the world's shape, not ours. Left me hollow, mending fences alone while my heart bled out quiet. Out here, with the miles forcing you close, it's the same trap. Wanting you terrifies me. Losing that too, in this space where there's nowhere to hide. The confession poured, raw as canyon rock, fear of opening up, spilling like water from a busted line. My chest heaved, eyes stinging, the ridges blurring gold through unshed tears. I'd vowed never again, but her nearness shattered it, the dam cracking wide. She went still, breath catching, then her hand shifted on the seat, inches from mine. "It's the silences that got me," she said, voice soft but steady, mutual revelation threading the air. "Those shared stretches, just us and the road, your steady hands on the wheel, the way you point out the land like it's part of you. It sparked something. Doubts about my straight path, sure, but more. Attraction, real and quiet, building in the cab's hold. Your reserve drew me, made me want to break through to see the woman under the walls. I didn't plan it, but these drives, they showed me I want you, not some expected line." Her words hung honest, eyes locked on mine, the sunset painting her face warm. No pretense, just truth, attraction, born from the miles, the reliance turning to want. Tension released in a rush, hands clasping over the console. fingers intertwining, rough and sure. Her palm pressed warm against mine, calluses from new work meeting my own. The first explicit acknowledgement, pulsing like a heartbeat, shared. This, I whispered, thumb tracing her knuckle, this is what scares me most. But fear ebbed in that grip, replaced by a quiet surge. The cab no longer a cage, but a bridge. She squeezed back, smile faint in the dying light. Then let's face it together. The ridges slipped past, gold fading to dusk, but the hold anchored us, feelings voiced at last. Pull off at familiar overlook, seals the shift. We pulled off at the familiar overlook, tires crunching gravel as the truck nosed into the turnout. The engine cut with a sigh, leaving only the wind's low whistle through the sagebrush and the fading hum of the world below. Ridges stretched dark against the twilight, the valley floor dotted with ranch lights like scattered embers. I'd stopped here before, alone, to shake off the day's weight, but now Lena's hand stayed laced in mine over the console, a tether I couldn't release. Her thumb traced slow circles on my skin, each pass easing the knot in my chest. The cab felt alive with it, our breaths sinking in the quiet drop. She turned fully, eyes catching the last gold from the horizon, unflinching in the dim. I love you, she said, words simple as a fence post driven true, no hesitation in the twilight's hold. Not the coworker reliance, not the doubts we'd skirted. This was raw, her gaze steady on mine, stripping the miles between us bare. Vulnerability hit me square. Her confession, cracking the final wall I'd clung to, fear of loss flooding out like rain-swollen creek. But in her eyes, I saw no fleeing shadow, just the woman who'd shared my drives, my silences, turning them into something real. I reciprocated then, fear overcome in a surge, like dawn breaking cold ridges. I love you too, I whispered, voice rough from holding back so long. My free hand lifted, cupping her jaw, thumb brushing the soft line of her cheek where dust still lingered from the road. She leaned into it, eyes half closing, and I pulled her across the console, tender kiss, sealing the shift. Our lips met slow, hesitant at first, mine tasting salt from the day's sweat, hers warm with the coffee we'd shared earlier. The kiss deepened, her hand sliding to my neck, fingers threading my hair, pulling me closer in the cab's confines. No rush, just the press of mouths exploring what words had unlocked, breaths mingling hot and uneven. Hands moved gentle then, boundaries dissolving like mist under sun. Mine traced her arm, feeling the muscle earned from bales and fences, down to her waist where shirt met skin, warm and yielding under my palm. She shivered, not from chill, but the spark of it, her fingers slipping under my flannel, grazing ribs that rose quick with each inhale. The console dug into my side, but I didn't care. Her touch mapped me careful, like learning a new trail, nails light on my back, drawing a low sound from my throat. She broke the kiss to trail lips along my jaw, breath ghosting my ear. I've wanted this since the first shortcut you showed me. Her words vibrated against my skin, hands exploring the curve of my hip, pulling me tighter in the seat's hold. I mirrored it, palm sliding up her thigh, feeling the denim's rough weave and the heat beneath, our bodies shifting to close every gap the cab allowed. Kisses turned fervent, tongues brushing tentative, then, sure, the taste of her filling me, sweet from the lingering thermos, edged with the day's earth. Emotional payoff settled deep as we eased back, foreheads touching, hands still linked low on each other's waists. No more pulling away, I murmured, the promise grounding me like roots in canyon soil. She nodded, smile soft in the gathering dark, eyes bright with the same fear I'd carried, now shared and lighter. Future drives as lovers, she said, voice husky, not just riding shotgun, waking to this, miles with your hand in mine, building something out here that lasts. No grand plans, just the ranch's rhythm. Dawns together, storms weathered side by side, her city edges softening into our world. Vulnerability lingered, but it bound us now, not broke. The fear of losing in close quarters faded, replaced by the steady thrum of her pulse under my fingers. The cab, our first shared space beyond work. The final image held as I turned the key. Truck humming back to life with a rumble that echoed our quickened hearts. The overlook slipped away in the mirror, world feeling less vast. Ridges no longer barriers, but paths we'd claimed together. Her head rested on my shoulder for the last stretch, hand warm on my knee, the night wrapping us easy. Dawn broke soft on our next drive, hands intertwined over the gear shift without fear, the cab filled with quiet certainty. If you felt this quiet pull, share below. Subscribe for more Sapphic truths.